clarity is power. It sounds simple, even cliché, but in reality, clarity is the most underestimated weapon in performance, leadership, and growth. The moment you become clear, you become unstoppable, not because obstacles disappear, but because your decision making sharpens, your energy focuses, and your results compound. Most people are stuck not because they lack potential, but because they lack clarity. They're busy, overwhelmed, exhausted, yet not making measurable progress. Why? Because they're moving without direction, reacting instead of executing. Clarity is not about knowing everything. It's about knowing what matters most and having the courage to cut everything else. It's about choosing over and over again to define your goal, your role, your plan, and your standards. That's where the power comes from. Decisions made with intention, not emotion. When you're unclear, everything feels urgent. When you're clear, you know what can wait and what can't. You stop overcommitting, overthinking, and over-explaining. You stop letting chaos run your calendar, and you start aligning your actions with your actual goals, not your anxiety. Most people say they want clarity, but in reality, they avoid it. Why? Because clarity creates accountability. When you say, I want to grow my business by 20% in the next 90 days, you're putting a number on the dream. You're inviting pressure, you're removing the wiggle room, and that's the point. Clarity gives you a target, and with a target comes focus. You don't need 10 new ideas. You need one clear outcome, broken into the right actions, owned with discipline. That's how you move. You can see it on teams all the time. Confusion around who owns what, vague roles, loose expectations, and then they wonder why things fall through the cracks or why results are inconsistent. It's not a talent problem, it's not a motivation problem, it's a clarity problem. When roles are clear, performance can be measured. When responsibilities are clear, delegation becomes effective. When priorities are clear, meetings stop becoming status updates and start becoming strategy sessions. Clarity turns noise into alignment. Clarity also unlocks speed. Without it, every decision takes longer than it should. You hesitate. You ask 5 people for their opinion. You overanalyze. You worry more about being liked than about being effective. But when you're clear, you move. You delegate with confidence. You say yes and no faster. You communicate expectations directly. That's when momentum starts to build. Not because you're rushing, but because you're not wasting time on the wrong things. It's easy to confuse motion with progress when you're unclear. You work long hours, check off tasks, answer emails, and still feel behind. Why? Because you never define success. You never stop to ask, what does winning look like this week? Clarity brings that question front and center. It forces you to slow down just long enough to define the scoreboard, then pick the plays that actually get you there, and clarity isn't just about what you do, it's also about who you are becoming. Do you know the kind of leader, partner, or performer you're trying to become? If not, then how will you know if you're becoming them? You can't grow into someone vague. You have to define the next version of you in specific terms. What does that person prioritize? How do they communicate? How do they show up on hard days? Clarity in identity drives clarity in behavior, and clarity in behavior creates consistency in results. It's tempting to wait for clarity to appear, to hope it arrives through a breakthrough, or a book, or some external moment of insight. But clarity is not something you find, it's something you create. You create it through reflection, through asking better questions, through deciding what matters and what doesn't, through making the hard call even when it's messy. Clarity is the byproduct of courage. It's born in the moments you stop settling for vague goals, low standards, and unclear boundaries. If you're leading a team, clarity becomes your number one responsibility. Your team will never rise above your ability to communicate clear expectations. They don't need motivation quotes. They need to know what success looks like, what metrics matter, and what behaviors drive performance. And they need you to hold them accountable with consistency, not chaos. Clarity is kindness. Clarity is leadership. Without it, you create confusion. With it, you build trust. Power doesn't come from working more. It comes from working on the right things. That's what clarity does. It filters out the noise and lets the needle movers rise to the top. So if you feel stuck right now, ask yourself, what am I actually trying to achieve? What does success look like this week, this quarter, this year? What would it look like to get radically clear on that and then act in alignment with it every single day? Clarity is power, create it. Protect it and watch what happens. Courage over comfort is a choice, a daily, often moment to moment decision to do what's right over what's easy. It's the commitment to growth over convenience, action over avoidance, and leadership over likability. Comfort is familiar. It feels safe, predictable, and even validating in the short term. But courage asks more from you. It pulls you out of your routine, exposes your fears, and demands that you act even when there's no guarantee it will work. That's where transformation happens, not in ease, but in effort. Most people want change without discomfort. They want the results, but not the resistance. They want growth, but they avoid the very tension that makes it possible. Growth, by its nature, is uncomfortable. It stretches you. It brings up doubt, conflict, and uncertainty. And if you keep choosing comfort, you end up building a life that feels safe but stagnant, a career that's busy but lacks meaning, a team that's polite but unproductive, a routine that's full but not fulfilling. That's the cost of comfort, potential left on the table. Courage means saying the hard thing in the meeting, even when your voice shakes. It means giving feedback that's direct and specific, not sugar-coated or delayed. It means taking full ownership when something goes wrong instead of blaming the process or the people. That's not easy, but it's necessary because the more often you choose courage, the stronger your leadership becomes. People don't trust perfection, they trust honesty. They trust someone who's willing to face discomfort in service of a greater outcome. You won't always feel courageous. That's not the point. Courage isn't about being fearless, it's about being committed. Committed to your values, your vision, your team, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. If you wait until you feel ready, you'll wait forever. The real shift happens when you stop asking, "Do I feel confident enough to do this?" and start asking, "Am I willing to be uncomfortable for the sake of what matters?" Comfort is often disguised as logic. It shows up as excuses like it's not the right time, "I don't want to rock the boat," or "let me think about it a little longer." But deep down, you know when you're stalling. You know when you're avoiding the action that would actually move the needle. Courage means calling yourself out on that. It means identifying where you're holding back and taking the next step anyway. Sometimes courage is about speaking up. Other times it's about shutting up and listening. It takes courage to be coachable, to receive feedback without defending, to admit, "I don't know how to do this," yet that vulnerability. That's the foundation of real growth. The more secure you are in your willingness to learn, the less fragile you become, and fragile leaders don't scale. On teams, courage over comfort looks like creating a culture where truth is louder than politeness, where accountability is not avoided but expected. It means setting standards that challenge people, not just please them. Because when you choose comfort as a leader, you teach your team to play small. But when you model courage, you give them permission to raise their game. Courage also means stepping into roles before you feel ready. It means taking the risk, making the pitch, applying for the opportunity even when imposter syndrome is screaming at you. Because comfort says, "Stay where you're safe," but courage says, "You were made for more than this." And the truth is, nobody grows into their potential while playing it safe. You grow by doing the hard things scared and showing up again tomorrow. Let's be clear, this isn't about reckless action or ignoring wisdom. It's about choosing principle over pressure, growth over ego. It's about identifying the moments where your instinct is to shrink and choosing instead to expand. Every time you stretch, your threshold expands. What once felt terrifying starts to feel normal. That's how leaders are built, not in comfort, but in the compound effect of courageous choices. You can't build an extraordinary life, career, or business while avoiding discomfort. The results you want are on the other side of 100 small decisions to show up fully, speak honestly, and act boldly. So if you're looking for breakthrough, don't ask for a smoother path. Ask for the courage to take the next right step, regardless of how comfortable it is. Courage doesn't guarantee success, but it guarantees progress. Because even when things don't go perfectly, you learn, you adjust, and you grow. That's the win. That's the point. Comfort is easy, but it's also forgettable. Courage is hard, but it changes everything, so choose it over and over again until courage becomes your new comfort zone. Discipline drives delivery every single time, not talent, not intention, not ambition. Discipline is what turns ideas into action, action into consistency, and consistency into results. Without it, even the best plans fall apart. People talk a lot about motivation and mindset, but the truth is, motivation fades. Energy shifts, circumstances change. Discipline is what keeps you moving when motivation runs out. It's the bridge between the goal you set and the outcome you actually get. Discipline is not about doing everything. It's about doing the right things repeatedly without negotiating with yourself. That's the difference between being busy and being productive. Being busy means reacting all day, putting out fires, answering messages, and checking boxes. Discipline means your day is structured around priorities, not distractions. It means your calendar reflects your goals. It means you protect your focus, your time, and your standards like they matter, because they do. Most people think they're struggling with execution when really, they're struggling with discipline. They have goals, they know what needs to be done, but they aren't consistent. And inconsistency is the enemy of results. It's not about working harder in bursts, it's about working smarter with rhythm. Discipline builds that rhythm. It turns chaos into order. It creates predictability, and with predictability comes performance. Execution doesn't happen on accident. It happens because you built the structure to support it. That's what discipline is. A set of systems and habits designed to make performance repeatable. It's waking up with a plan. It's reviewing your metrics regularly. It's holding yourself accountable even when no one's watching. That's how delivery happens, not through bursts of inspiration, but through daily commitments. Discipline doesn't have to be complicated. It's not about perfection or being robotic. It's about being intentional. You don't need 10 new habits. You need to lock in on the 3 behaviors that actually drive your results and make them non-negotiable. Maybe it's reviewing your goals every morning. Maybe it's blocking time for deep work every day. Maybe it's ending each day with a 15-minute performance audit. These small, consistent practices create compound results over time. The biggest mistake people make is relying on how they feel to determine what they do. But high performers don't ask, "Do I feel like doing this today?" They ask, "Is this what needs to be done today?" There's a difference. Discipline closes the gap between emotion and execution. It removes the drama and replaces it with data. When you're disciplined, you show up regardless of how you feel, and ironically, the more you show up, the more confident and capable you become. You can't deliver consistently at a high level without discipline, and if you're leading a team, you can't expect consistent performance without building a culture of discipline. That means clear goals, defined roles, scheduled check-ins, and real accountability. It means not just saying what matters, but making sure it's measured, reviewed, and reinforced. Discipline creates clarity, and clarity creates alignment. Discipline also creates freedom. That sounds counterintuitive, but it's true. When you're disciplined, you don't live in constant reaction mode. You don't waste energy deciding what to do every hour. You don't stay up late making up for what you didn't do earlier. You control your calendar instead of your calendar controlling you. That's real freedom, the freedom to focus, to rest, to deliver on what matters most. In business, discipline is what separates companies that scale from companies that stall. Everyone starts with vision. Everyone talks about values, but the ones that win are the ones that build operational discipline into their culture. That means tracking performance, managing time, making decisions based on facts, not feelings. It's not glamorous, but it works because delivery isn't about hype. It's about follow through. The same goes for your personal goals. Want to improve your health, finances, or relationships? It's not going to happen through one off motivation. It's going to happen through disciplined habits tracked consistently, refined over time. Delivery is a byproduct of your daily systems. If you want different results, you don't need more intensity, you need more consistency. That's the discipline gap most people miss. There's no shortcut around it. If you want to deliver at a high level, you need to get honest about where you're undisciplined, what habits are costing you progress, what distractions are stealing your focus, what standards have you lowered without realizing it. Discipline starts with awareness, then it becomes a decision, then it becomes a way of life. So if you're serious about delivering on your goals, your role, your potential, don't chase motivation. Build discipline, structure your day, define your priorities, track your progress, and execute relentlessly because the results don't come from what you want. They come from what you do over and over again. Discipline drives delivery. Always, people move the mission, not plans, not products, not even vision. It's people, committed, aligned, hyper-forming individuals who turn ideas into execution and strategy into results. No matter how strong your business model is, how innovative your product might be, or how compelling your goals are, without the right people behind it, nothing scales. The greatest missions don't fail because of lack of ambition. They fail because leaders underestimate the power of building the right team. The truth is, you can't do everything yourself, and if you're trying to, you're the bottleneck. Growth is not just about getting more done, it's about getting more done through others. That requires intentional hiring, strategic development, and consistent accountability. You don't just need people, you need the right people in the right roles doing the right things. That's the foundation of operational excellence, but let's be clear, hiring talent isn't enough. Raw talent without clarity, structure, and standards becomes chaos. People need more than just a job description. They need to know how their role contributes to the bigger picture. They need measurable goals, direct feedback, and a leader who's willing to have honest conversations. When you give people purpose, ownership, and accountability, they show up differently. They start thinking like leaders, not just doers. Great leaders don't just manage tasks, they develop people. They coach, they correct, and they create environments where growth is expected, not optional. People want to be challenged. They want to be seen, valued, and pushed beyond their comfort zones. That doesn't happen through micromanagement or wishful thinking. It happens through structure, trust, and high expectations. The mission moves forward when your people are empowered to own their performance and held accountable to it. You can have the best systems in the world, but if your people aren't aligned, engaged, and growing, those systems will break. Culture isn't a vibe or a motivational slogan. It's the collective behavior of your team. It's what people do when no one's watching. And if you want a culture that moves the mission forward, you have to lead with clarity, consistency, and courage. You set the tone, you set the pace. If you tolerate mediocrity, you normalize it. If you reward excellence, you replicate it. That means hiring has to be strategic, not reactive. Every person you add to your team either strengthens your mission or weakens it. You're not just filling seats, you're building infrastructure. The cost of a bad hire isn't just financial, it's cultural. It slows down execution, dilutes performance, and drains your hyper-formers. The standard is not just can they do the job. The standard is will they elevate the mission. And once you have the right people, you need to develop them. No one hits their full potential on autopilot. Hyper-formers crave feedback. They want to know where they stand. They want to know what's next. You can't expect people to grow if you're not investing in their development. That doesn't always mean fancy programs or big budgets. Sometimes it's as simple as weekly ones, performance metrics, clear growth paths, and real-time coaching. It's showing your team that excellence isn't just expected, it's supported. You also have to create alignment. Your people need to know the mission, not just hear it once at a company meeting. They need to see how their work ties into the larger outcome. When people feel disconnected from the mission, they default to task-based thinking. But when they are aligned, they start thinking like owners. They make better decisions, they solve problems faster, and they push themselves and each other to higher standards. Accountability plays a massive role here. You can't expect people to move the mission if there's no consequence for dropping the ball. Accountability isn't about punishment, it's about consistency. It's about creating a culture where results matter and where people are supported in hitting them. When accountability is clear and fair, people don't resist it. They respect it because they know the standards are real and they trust the leadership to enforce them. At the end of the day, your mission can't scale beyond your team's capacity to execute it. You can't carry the whole thing on your back forever. You need people who are just as committed to the outcome as you are. People who think critically, take ownership, and push the work forward with urgency and excellence. That doesn't happen by accident. It happens because you built it person by person, conversation by conversation, system by system. So if your mission matters, and it should, invest in the people who can move it. Hire with clarity, lead with intention, develop with purpose, hold the line on standards, and never forget, people aren't your greatest asset, the right people are. And when they're aligned, empowered, and disciplined, that's when the mission truly starts to move. Data beats drama every single time. In business, emotions are inevitable, but decisions based on emotion are dangerous. They distort reality, fuel reactionary behavior, and waste valuable time and energy. Drama is loud, it's urgent, it's full of opinions, assumptions, and stories that feel true but often aren't. Data is quiet, clear, and non-negotiable. It tells the truth without bias, and when it becomes the foundation of how you run your business, performance transforms. Because now you're leading with facts, not feelings. Too many teams get stuck in the cycle of assumptions. I think this is working. I feel like we're behind. They probably misunderstood the assignment. These are not strategies. They're stories, and stories, unless backed by data, will keep you stuck. Drama thrives in the absence of measurement. If you don't have clear metrics, everyone makes up their own version of reality. That's how misalignment happens. That's how teams get off track. That's how progress stalls. When data becomes the standard, everything changes. It creates clarity. It gives you a baseline. It makes performance measurable and expectations concrete. Now, your team isn't guessing. They're focused. They're not debating. They're executing. You don't need to manage personalities when you're managing performance, and that shift alone eliminates 80% of the internal noise that holds businesses back. This doesn't mean data replaces people. It means it empowers them. It gives them something to own, something to work toward. High performers love data because it creates structure. It tells them what success looks like, where they stand, and what needs to improve. Low performers resist data because it removes hiding places, it exposes patterns, it demands accountability, and that's exactly why it works. Without data, every conversation becomes personal. With data, every conversation becomes professional. Feedback becomes objective, goals become measurable, and accountability becomes expected. You stop managing based on who's the loudest, most emotional, or most convincing. You start managing based on output, consistency, and execution. That's how healthy cultures are built, not on drama, but on data. It also creates speed, because when the numbers are clear, the decisions are fast. You don't have to sit in a 2-hour meeting debating what might be working. You can look at the numbers and see what is working. You don't have to wonder if someone is falling behind. The dashboard shows you. You don't need to micromanage. You can lead through metrics. That's what scale requires. Not more oversight, but better information. But this only works if the data you're using is the right data. Vanity metrics won't move the needle. You need to know what actually drives the business. What are the behaviors that lead to results? What are the conversion rates, response times, and retention rates that tell you how well the machine is working? Don't drown in data. Pick the metrics that matter and review them often, weekly, relentlessly. Because what gets measured gets managed, and what gets managed gets improved. That's where data becomes your secret weapon. It doesn't just diagnose problems, it reveals opportunities. It helps you coach better, plan smarter, and lead stronger. It gives you leverage because now you're not solving the same problems over and over again. You're solving the right problems, the ones that actually move the business forward. Data also helps you scale culture. It creates shared language, shared goals, shared expectations. Everyone knows what matters. Everyone knows where they stand. That alignment is powerful. It eliminates gossip. It reduces politics. It brings focus back to performance. And performance, not personality, is what drives growth. Now let's be honest, drama is addictive. It feels good to vent. It's satisfying to react, but it's also exhausting, unproductive, and costly. Every hour spent in drama is an hour stolen from strategy. Every meeting that spirals into opinion sharing is a missed opportunity to execute. If you want to lead at a high level, you have to break the addiction to drama and replace it with the discipline of data. That starts at the top. If you lead with emotion, your team will too. But if you lead with clarity, measurement, and consistency, you'll create a culture where results matter more than feelings, where progress matters more than personalities, and where problems get solved instead of recycled. So if your team feels chaotic, if your meetings feel like debates, if performance feels inconsistent, don't lean into emotion, lean into data, track it. Review it, use it, make it the standard because data doesn't lie, it doesn't play favorites, it doesn't need convincing, it just tells the truth, and when you build your business on truth, not drama, you win. Every time.